There is a saying, no one ever gets out of this life unscathed. It is so true that suffering is inevitable. Suffering is obvious when we see others struggle with illness, heartbreak, poverty, or injustice. But sometimes our choice to love brings unexpected suffering, like the personal sacrifices we make for our loved ones, or the consequences for taking a stand for something that goes against the status quo. No one wants to suffer, and we tend to try to avoid it at all costs. Sometimes we even try to shield ourselves from seeing the suffering of others. In his humanity, Jesus suffered too. He suffered misunderstanding, criticism, and judgment from the leaders of his own people. He suffered the betrayal of friends. He suffered rejection, ridicule, and false accusations. Suffering is a lonely place to be. It is often the place where we feel abandoned by God. In his suffering on the cross, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you abandoned me?"
The universal question is, why do we suffer? And people often look to God for a straight answer. They look to God to eradicate all suffering, or even blame God for causing the suffering. Suffering is never God's will for us. God never inflicts suffering upon us. It is part of the human condition. There is no answer to the why question. In the heart of Christ, we come to understand that even though there is never a way out of suffering in our human life, there is a way through it. That is the way of the cross. What a paradox. How can an instrument of violence, humiliation, and death become for the Christian a symbol of life and victory over suffering and death? The cross shows us again, in the suffering heart of Christ, that God does not stand apart from us, but joins us in everything that we experience in life. God takes on our pain, our grief, our humiliation. God does not run from our suffering and even joins us in our death. God accompanies us through the place of ultimate evil. Often the question is asked in the face of human suffering, where is God in the midst of all this suffering? This question is asked at a hospital bed, in war zones, at the site of natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina and Irene. And it was asked after the tragedy of September 11th. In his book entitled Night, the author, Elie Wiesel, himself a survivor of the Holocaust, having been forced to witness the hanging of fellow Jews, stood with another person as a child was dying in slow agony before their eyes. The man standing behind him asked the question, "Where is God now?" And Wiesel says, "I heard a voice within me answer him, 'Where is God?' Here he is. He is hanging here on this gallows." The heart of Christ suffers with us. When we speak of Jesus as the compassion of God, that is what we mean. The word compassion means to suffer with. Jesus' passion and death help us to know God's promise to never, ever leave us. But we cannot speak of the cross without seeing the other side. God raised Jesus through death to new life. Not a restoration to his former life prior to the crucifixion, but to a new life, without the boundaries of space and time, in the very fullness of God. God's promise to raise us to that life, to conquer all that keeps us from being free, is the Easter promise. Our amazing God of love has conquered sin and death. God is light, and the darkness can never extinguish it. The rhythms of our own life mirror this movement of dying and rising. Walking through suffering and darkness with the heart of Christ always brings us to another place of new life.
About 4.5 years ago, she was diagnosed with a neurological illness, something like Parkinson's disease, but they're still not quite sure just what this disorder is. In the meantime, her life, the quality of her life has diminished to a great deal, and this has been very sad to be a part of. I mean, she's my bride, you know. She was a professional violinist and has lost the ability to play music. She loved to garden. She can't garden any longer. So her sense, that fierce, beautiful independence that she had is gone. So there's been a lot of loss in her life, and I've been very close to all of that. And so I suffer because of the ripple effect, clearly, but she seems to be the the focal of suffering. And Bishop Hubbard mentions that to ask the question why is kind of whatless. There aren't any answers, and I did that initially when we first began to experience this. You know, why now? Why her? Why not me? And he's right. There are no answers, at least not so far, to that question, why. And I remember that someone said one time that if you're going to ask God a question and you're not getting an answer to your question, maybe you should ask a different question. And that's turned out to be true. So I ask a question that works much better, and to which I get answers. The question primarily today is not why, but what now? For my wife Beth and for me as a caregiver. Where do you want me? What do you want me to do? Now, I know, because I've learned through trial and error, what I need to do today to give her the essential, health and hygiene, food, and homemaker type needs need to be addressed. And that's pretty good, but and pretty easy after a period of time. I almost have a lot of this stuff down by rote, but I still need to continue to ask each morning, and I do. Here we are. It is what it is. And what about today? And I think specifically, the question that I need to, or the need that I really have as a caregiver is the need to be gentle and to be patient, which is very difficult for me. Always has been throughout my entire life. And the Lord, the good Lord, does provide those resources I need if I'm willing to ask, day after day. The suffering heart of Jesus, I think about that. He clearly suffered. And nobody does escape totally from suffering. The real deal is, what do we do? What do we do now? It's almost like a so what, now what? So what, now what?
On September 11th, 2001, we lost our son Michael at the Trade Center during a terrorist attack. He was 30 years old at the time.
Which was, for the whole world, a horrific day. And we had a tremendous loss. And of course we felt that, and we thought, why us? Why did this happen? And it brought us to our knees, and we're wondering, what can come of this? And I remember going out to St. Pius X for in the evening with Sister, I forget her name, and she asked, why are you here? This was for people who had lost someone in the last 6 months. Why are you here? And I raised my hand and I said, I'm here to know whether my son is in a better place. And I know, from my faith that it says it is, but is it really? Because I have to know that it really is. And she said, it's really hard. It's hard to feel that, but it's true. And the whole place agreed with her and helped me feel like, you're right, he is in a better place. Now I have to get to a better place. And I went for some grief counseling. We both did some grief counseling, but separately. And I went to St. Pius X for grief counseling. And I found that I was able to help some other people. There was about 10 people who had lost people, dear loved ones in the last month, 6 months, I guess. And I was kind of able to help them with their grief because I didn't harbor any anger. It was just the loss I felt. And I was able to help them, and I was telling my friend, Sister Rosemary Cardillo, and she said, Kay, you've been given a gift. I said, you call that a gift? I gave my son? She said, really, it's a gift, and you're going to be able to use it to help others. So we kind of believed that Christ was helping us get through this, and we thought something good has to come from it.
We both went through grief counseling, and as did many of our children. We have a rather large family. There's 8 children left. It was 9 with Mike, and several of them had to go through grief counseling. So it was quite a period of time for adjustment for us. It was quite some time before we really could grapple with it and get over it. And eventually we did. Eventually we, as a family, we decided, well, we wanted to have a memorial for Mike. And the best memorial we could think of was to set up some kind of a scholarship fund. And we did that.
And people, the people were incredibly generous at the time. And people were sending us money, and we thought, what will we do with this? And one of our sons said, how about a scholarship at Schenectady High School? We feel like we've been blessed to be able to do it, and the people around us have worked so hard. He also works hard on it. But it's been a terrific success, and it's made us heal and much better in accepting what's happened to us.